Welcome to my channel Sella Buzz. In the world of rock and roll, few names are as synonymous with legendary status as Led Zeppelin. Their sound, their style, their presence, all of these factors have cemented their place in the pantheon of music history. But while the band is renowned for their monumental contributions to the rock genre, there's another aspect of their career that often gets overshadowed by their musical legacy, their revolutionary business strategy that ultimately saved them an estimated $200 million. This story is not just about musical innovation, but about how Led Zeppelin took control of their financial future, paving the way for future generations of musicians to become entrepreneurs in their own right. At the height of their fame, Led Zeppelin wasn't just the world's most successful band, they were also one of the savviest business ventures in music history. Led by the visionary management of Peter Grant and a deep understanding of the business of rock and roll, Led Zeppelin outsmarted the traditional music industry, broke free from the shackles of record labels, and established a business empire that allowed them to keep more of their hard-earned money. The traditional music industry landscape in the 1960s and early 1970s. To understand the brilliance of Led Zeppelin's business decisions, we need to look back at the music industry landscape in the 1960s and early 1970s. During this time, the music industry was dominated by a few major record labels, including Universal Music, Warner Brothers, and Columbia Records. These companies held the reins when it came to an artist's career, from deciding who would get signed to how much of the profits the artist would receive. Artists in the 1960s and 1970s were often forced to sign exclusive contracts with record labels that limited their creative control, ownership of their music, and share of the profits. These contracts typically awarded record labels a significant portion of album sales, often leaving musicians with a small fraction of the revenue. Even worse, record labels had a stranglehold on touring revenue, merchandising rights, and licensing opportunities, leaving artists unable to profit from the many avenues of income that their popularity created. The typical record deal often went like this. The artist would record an album, the record company would fund the production, and the company would own the rights to the music. The band would receive a relatively small royalty percentage from album sales, usually between 7 to 10% of the retail price. However, the record label would also take a significant chunk of the revenue from touring and merchandise sales, often leaving the artist with very little. To make matters worse, many musicians had no control over their own image or how their music was marketed. They had no say in the design of album covers, the artwork, or how they were portrayed in the media. For most artists, this was the way the industry worked, until Led Zeppelin came along. Peter Grant's vision, breaking free from the system. The story of Led Zeppelin's business success begins with their manager, Peter Grant. Grant, who had previously managed other successful acts like the Yardbirds, had a keen understanding of the business side of music. When he took on the role of managing Led Zeppelin, he had a vision to take control of the band's business operations and free them from the constraints of traditional record deals. Unlike other managers who were content to let record labels control the business side of things, Grant wanted complete autonomy for the band. He knew that if Led Zeppelin was to become more than just another rock band, they needed to take control of their financial future. The first step in this plan was to bypass record labels altogether. Led Zeppelin signed a 2-album deal with Atlantic Records in 1968, but this deal wasn't like typical record contracts. Grant negotiated that the band would own 100% of their master recordings, an unheard-of arrangement at the time. This gave Led Zeppelin unprecedented control over their music and how it was distributed. Owning their own masters meant that the band could reap the full benefits of album sales without the record company taking a hefty cut. But Grant wasn't satisfied with just controlling the music. He wanted to control every aspect of the band's career. This led to the formation of Swan Song Records, a label that would become the vehicle for their artistic and financial independence. Swan Song Records, creating their own empire. In 1974, Led Zeppelin took the bold step of establishing Swan Song Records. The label was designed to give the band full creative and financial control over their music and career. With Swan Song, Zeppelin not only owned their music, but also controlled the distribution, marketing, and promotion of their albums. This was a groundbreaking move. especially considering that at the time, most bands were still signing away their rights to major labels. Peter Grant's strategy was simple but brilliant. Led Zeppelin would no longer be at the mercy of the record companies. They would manage every aspect of their business, from album production to touring to merchandising, and keep the lion's share of the profits. With Swan Song, Zeppelin had the ability to keep all the revenue from album sales, tours, and merchandise, rather than sharing it with the record label. By creating Swan Song, Led Zeppelin avoided the standard record deal model that had long been the norm in the music industry. The band was now in a position where they could make more money from their music and related ventures than ever before. This independence allowed them to earn tens of millions of dollars, money that would have otherwise gone to the record labels. But Swan Song wasn't just about financial independence. It was also a way for the band to take control of their own artistic direction. With Swan Song, Led Zeppelin had complete creative freedom over their albums, their cover art, and their public image. They could experiment with new sounds and ideas, without having to answer to record executives or deal with external pressures. Touring and merchandising. Leveraging their brand, one of the most important aspects of Led Zeppelin's business strategy was their approach to touring and merchandising. While other bands were content to perform and rely on record sales, Led Zeppelin recognized the immense revenue potential of their live performances. Unlike most bands of their era, Zeppelin owned the rights to their tours, meaning they didn't have to give a cut to the record label or a third-party promoter. This allowed them to retain the majority of the profits from ticket sales. Their massive tours were not only an opportunity to showcase their music, but also a chance to create multi-million-dollar events. Their concerts became a branding machine. Every show was an opportunity to sell not only tickets but also merchandise. In the 1970s, bands had never fully capitalized on the potential of merchandise. T-shirts, posters, and other memorabilia were often sold at concerts, but the profits typically went to promoters and record companies. Led Zeppelin, however, took full advantage of this revenue stream, selling branded merchandise at their shows and on their official merchandise website. Led Zeppelin was also one of the first bands to create iconic logos and visual imagery that became synonymous with their brand. Their famous Zoso symbol, the Swan Song emblem, and other visual elements became instantly recognizable, further solidifying their identity as a brand. With Swan Song Records managing their career and direct control over their touring and merchandising, Led Zeppelin was able to rake in millions from their concerts and merchandise sales. The band wasn't just performing, they were creating an entire ecosystem of revenue that fed into their brand. Financial success and legacy. Led Zeppelin's approach to music and business was a massive success. Their albums sold in the millions, and their tours brought in millions more. With full control over their music and business ventures, they saved an estimated $200 million by avoiding the typical cut that record labels would have taken. The financial freedom allowed Led Zeppelin to continue making music on their own terms, without worrying about external pressures. They were able to reinvest their money into furthering their careers, creating more innovative albums, and expanding their brand even further. Their success also had a lasting impact on the music industry. As the years went by, other artists began to take note of Led Zeppelin's approach to business. Many musicians began to see that the traditional record deal was no longer necessary to succeed in the music world. In the years following Zeppelin's rise to success, more and more artists took control of their own careers, either by creating independent labels or by negotiating better contracts with record companies. Today, Led Zeppelin's legacy extends beyond their music. They are often hailed as the pioneers of artist independence and entrepreneurial thinking in the music industry. Their approach to business has influenced countless artists and managers, shaping how the modern music industry operates. The legacy of Led Zeppelin's business savvy. Led Zeppelin's story isn't just about their music, it's about how they reshaped the music industry. Through their innovative thinking, business acumen, and willingness to take risks, they managed to outsmart the music industry and save millions of dollars. Their decision to take control of their business operations, from album production to touring to merchandising, revolutionized how artists view their careers. Led Zeppelin showed the world that it was possible for musicians to not only create art, but also control their financial future. The lessons from Led Zeppelin's story are clear. Artists can take control of their own destiny. They can build their own empire, protect their creative work, and profit from every avenue possible. And as Led Zeppelin's example shows, when you take control of your career, the financial rewards can be truly massive.